Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast all things college golf. You're listening to Mike McGraw, the men's golf coach at Baylor University. Today's guest on Better Than I Found It is my dear friend, lifelong friend, Jeff McMillian from Stillwater, Oklahoma. Jeff was the best junior golfer in Oklahoma when I was a kid growing up. He played golf at Oklahoma State, played mini tour golf, was at the finals of tour school 4 different times, played in 2 U.S. Opens, has a very successful company today called Backtee Sports, where they do corporate outings. But the best thing about Jeff is just his friendship through the years and all we've meant to each other in the world of golf and just gotten to know each other all through the years. It shows you how golf and college golf specifically create lifelong relationships. I think you really enjoy Jeff's stories. I hope you enjoy the podcast. All right, Better Than I Found It faithful, join me in welcoming my good buddy, lifelong friend, Jeff McMillian, to the podcast today. Jeff, thanks for joining me. This is something I've been looking forward to for a while.
Me too. Good to be with you, Coach.
Yeah, it's great. You know, not many people can say they've had a buddy. I mean, like a close buddy that you text all the time or call, or when I was living in Stillwater, we saw each other all the time. But for 55 years, that's a pretty long stretch to have a friend. I actually met you. I knew who you were, but I met you on the first tee at Trosper Park, 1970, at the South Central Junior PGA whatever tournament. You won that day. I was paired with you, and I look back on that, and I think I must have shot 50 on 9 holes. Not very good, but you were the best little junior golfer I'd ever seen at the time. And here it is, almost 55 years later. I think golf's the greatest sport in the world at forging like lifelong relationships. What do you think?
Well, there's no question. And in the case of you and I, we don't talk as often as we used to, but we can go, whether it's weeks or months, and pick right up where we never left off. So it is odd, or maybe not odd, but unusual for a friendship to endure that long and still be that strong. And I think I don't know that it happens in golf more than anywhere else, but it certainly does seem like you create a lot of lasting, memorable friendships in the world of golf.
If you're playing basketball as a kid growing up, junior basketball, and you both become All-Americans, you play in the NBA, and then you go off and have lives. And when you're 65 years old, as we are almost, you're not playing a lot of basketball with those people, but you can play a lot of golf with them. And business is done on the golf course. Deals are closed on a golf course. Your relationships cemented on a golf course. I don't know. I'm not playing as much as I used to, nor are you, but we both know that golf has kept us together all these years. It's been great.
Maybe one of these days we can have a full circle moment, and maybe we'll start playing a little golf together again.
Can I play a tee just one ahead of you? Would that be okay?
You can play wherever you'd like.
Well, thank you. My dad, when he was 80, I called him up. He passed away at 80, but several months before he passed away, I called him up and I said, Dad, I hadn't talked to him in a while. How you playing? He says, well, I'm playing about 3 days a week. I'm playing the best golf I've ever played. And I said, you are? That's amazing. And my dad, he was a man of few words, but when he said something, you listened. But I said, yeah, what are you shooting? And he said, well, I don't have any idea. And I said, oh my gosh, well, you don't keep score? I mean, how can you say you're playing the best golf and you don't know what you're shooting? He says, well, I just drive the cart sort of down the fairway until I find a shot that fits my eye. And I just throw a ball down, there and hit that ball. I said, so you finally figured, after 65 or 70 years, you figured out only hit shots that fit your eye. That's genius.
Well, I don't think I've heard you tell that story before, but that is genius. That's maybe where we'll end up one of these days, just driving down the fairway until we find a spot we like.
Why would you play golf not enjoying the game? I tell my players on my golf team all the time, I don't understand why you don't enjoy golf. It's like an amazing experience. And, but they don't see it that way. My dad figured it out. Only hit shots that you like. And I would love to be able to do that. But, I talked about that first day that I met you in 1970. But then we spent a bunch of years together on what was not really a junior tour. It was just a series of junior golf tournaments that the country clubs or golf courses would host in the state. It's like today in Texas, there's 5 junior golf tours. In Oklahoma, there's a couple of junior golf tours. I mean, these are organized, centrally located, position where they organize it and they run all the tournaments. We didn't have that, did we?
We did not. We did have a handful of tournaments that were very, very important to us, though, that we look forward to, couldn't wait to get to every year. And, without rattling off all the names, you remember them probably just as well as I do. But I would venture to say that we had every bit as much fun as the kids that are playing junior golf today. And I remember every place that we went, they rolled out the red carpet for us and took great care of us and acted like we were really important, which I'm not sure that's changed a lot. I think that's still probably the case these days. You're obviously much closer to it than I am now, but very fond memories of junior golf in Oklahoma for sure.
Well, it's just so much more organized today, but in those days, the Perry Junior Golf Tournament. So Perry was a 9-hole golf course that you could stand in one spot. You could see somebody tee off on number 1. You could see them come approach number 3, tee off on 4, approach 5, tee off on 6. From a distance, you could see him walking down 7, and then you could see him coming down to 9. If I was a parent, and that was a 9-hole course, so to play an 18-hole round, you played it twice. So the parents got to see you about 10 or 11 times or whatever in a round of golf, and they never had to move. But that was an unusual event. Ada had a tournament at Oak Hills Country Club. J. Myers Memorial over at Meadowbrook in Broken Arrow. Your mom and Joyce Roberts and some other ladies got a tournament started at Stillwater Country Club in 1973, the Stillwater Junior. And then there was the State Junior and the Oklahoma City Invitational and the 4-ball. But none of those tournaments were connected to each other. They were just all run by different people. And I think our junior experience was fantastic. You and I played in a few national tournaments. I played in the Junior Orange Bowl one year, and I played in the Western Junior. But I know you played in, gosh, at least tell me all that when you got out of Oklahoma, what were the national junior tournaments you played in?
I played in the Junior World in San Diego one year. I think I was 16 at the time. I played in the Big I, the National Insurance event. There was a state qualifier in each state for. I played in it a couple of times. I think one of my college teammates, Bob Tway, won it one year. I played in it. And then I played in the U.S. Junior in 1976. Thought I had a chance maybe to do some good there. And actually, I think I finished maybe 3rd or 4th in the qualifying, but met up with Madden Hatcher in the first round, and who went on to win you probably remember, went on to win the U.S. Junior that year. It was up in Colorado, and he throttled me pretty good. The only other one I can remember was the Future Masters. It was in Alabama, but I never made the trip to Alabama. Finances, it just simply, my family didn't have the money that I could go to every one of them, quite honestly, and they did the best they could to see that I could get to all of them. And I think you were kind of in the same situation. But yeah, I think those were probably the big national ones that I played in. And there were, you mentioned, I think the PGA Junior at some point, but I don't remember much about it. So
yeah, it was not, junior golf wasn't on a national level. There was pretty much just your state level. But the other thing that was different, other than the organized tours they have nowadays, was parent involvement and parent presence. I remember your mom being at a good portion of the junior tournaments you were at, and Mrs. Delosier took all of her sons to all those tournaments, and there were a few other parents. But the difference between parents in 1971 and now is they would get you to the tournament, they'd stay in the clubhouse and eat, they would read books, they would visit, they would knit, sweaters, but they weren't out on the golf course watching. That's a lot different nowadays.
Yeah, again, you're a lot closer to it than I am. There is an AJGA event that Karsten Creek holds every fall, so I'm usually out there at least one day to watch. And it's completely different. I mean, my parents had little to none involvement on the golf course. I know you were the same way. Of course, both of our fathers were working, and my mom did take us around a bunch, but she never left the clubhouse. And with all that said, you know, I couldn't have had more supportive family. Not only my parents, my brother, who's the one that actually got me started playing when I was a little bitty guy. He cut off clubs for me when I was 2 or 3 years old and was the one that got me started. And he would come, and if he did make it out on the golf course, he would hide behind trees. And you may remember some of that, some of the times we played together.
I actually remember him. He was at Hillcrest Country Club in Oklahoma City when you won the state junior in 1975. I remember him being in a suit and tie that day. He was walking around in a suit and tie.
And I think he's probably like a lot of us. He is a little superstitious, and by trade, he is an attorney. So he would have a coat and tie on most days, I think. But from that point forward, I think I won that week. And I think from that point forward, anytime he came to watch me play, he made sure he had on a coat and tie.
I remember that. I thought that was so interesting. But, you know, my dad didn't get to see me play very much junior golf because, you know, he was working at the golf course daylight to dark. Your dad worked all the time. So it's like they didn't have that great an opportunity. So that's changed in junior golf. But one thing that I remember about your junior golf career is that you did something no other player in the history of Oklahoma has done. And I pointed this out to you before we started this recording, and you were going, oh, I didn't realize that had actually happened. You knew you'd won these events, but you didn't know you were the only one. You won 2 state junior titles, 1975 and 6, 2 state high school titles, 1977 and 78, and 2 state amateur titles, 1977 and 1981. So you're the only guy to win 2 of each of those three events in Oklahoma. But that's the upside. That's the great side. All those titles you won. Let's talk about a very dark day in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, 1974 state junior. I was there in the finals of the first flight. I hadn't played well in qualifying, so I got in first flight. So I'm there. But we finished, and I had time to watch you finish. You're playing the finals of the championship flight. We're 14 years of age, and something really, really tough happened at the end of that. What happened?
Well, long story short, I signed an incorrect scorecard. And you're right, at that age, at any age, it's tough. But, you know, a good lesson to learn at a young age. As you mentioned, I was 14 years old, and probably the first, I mean, I won some junior tournaments at that point. It was really the first one. You know, the state junior is a big tournament to win back then, obviously. And, you know, it was in my excitement after the round was over, just to kind of describe what happened. The front 9, the back 9 totals added up correctly. They were both correct totals, but 2 scores on the front 9 had been transposed. I believe they were about 3 or 4 holes apart. It was a par 5 and a par 3, and the scores for those 2 holes had been transposed. And so in my excitement, I added up the front 9, it added up correctly. And instead of checking the hole by hole, which obviously you have to do, I was disqualified. And yeah, it was a tough lesson to learn at a young age, but it certainly served as motivation the next year when it came time to play in the state junior. And I think I was driven by that maybe for that entire 12-month period of time leading up to the next year. And also, you know, it was a lifelong lesson because I've never signed another incorrect scorecard since then. And you and I have talked about that before, that I think once you do it the first time, you know, you're very careful from that point forward. And obviously there's a lot more over time. You and I have talked about, we talked about Jackson Brigman, who played at Oklahoma State and passed away not long ago. Just a great guy that you probably know the exact particulars better than I do at tour school. The final round of tour school one year, what happened to him, just devastating. So again, going back to my situation, it was a good lesson to learn at a young age.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I think pretty much when a guy signs an incorrect scorecard, 99% of the time, it never happens again. So, yeah, it should have happened in the Ada junior instead of the state junior for you. It would have been better. But I know that a couple of years later at Stillwater Country Club, your home course, when you won your second state junior in a row, I could see some real satisfaction in your eyes and in your heart. It was like this was a big deal for you. I had been beaten in match play earlier in the week, but I stayed and watched the final. That was great to see. You know, I stayed with you a lot through the years. I would come down and stay, and I loved coming down to Stillwater. I was a big OSU fan. One of the times I came down was for the 1973 NCAA championship. So there's a lot of memories I have of that week. I know you have some. I have this visual image of you standing, watching Ben Crenshaw hit a shot from the left rough on 18, and the rough is up to his knees. The rough was absolute. Do you have it in the office there?
The picture's right up there. Yeah, I don't know.
There it is. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, the picture's up on my office wall still to this day.
I mean, that golf course played so hard. There's several memories I have. I'm going to tell a memory I have, and then I'll let you take it from there. So right now, the driving range at Stillwater Country Club is still in the same spot. Maybe they hit from a different end of the range, but it's the same spot. But to the right of that driving range, or to the east, is a neighborhood. Well, that neighborhood was a big field all the way to the main road out there, and all the cars were parked there the final round. I've talked to Mike Holder about it several times. We've estimated the crowd, but it was right at 10,000 people for a college golf tournament. I mean, Ben Crenshaw was a rock star anyway, but the golf course played really, really hard that week. What are your memories?
I do remember the golf course was really hard. I think there was a fair amount of wind that week, which is not unusual in Oklahoma. There usually is. But I just remember more than anything being in awe of Ben Crenshaw. And I watched him a lot on the putting green. Obviously followed him a lot during the tournament. He was, a phenomenal putter even back then. But you probably remember a lot of the other players that were in that event that year, not just Ben Crenshaw, a lot of other names that went on to have highly successful careers on the regular tour and the champion tour.
Gary Koch, Phil Hancock, there were Danny Edwards, there was from Oklahoma State. There were a lot of great players at that tournament.
Andy Bean was a big boy. Yeah, Florida. Yeah, but it was just I was so looking forward to that. It was just such a great experience to see those guys that I looked up to, and obviously knew the Oklahoma State players, not personally, but knew them well, who they were, and couldn't wait to follow them that week as well. And you rattled off a couple of names already, but it was just such a treat to have it at Stillwater Country Club when you're 13 years old, to have those guys in town to play in the tournament at the level that you want to play at going forward.
Yeah, Ben shot about 5 over the last round. The wind blew really hard. He still held on to that victory. He's the last individual champion at the NCAA championship at over par. The last one, 1973.
Isn't that amazing?
It's unbelievable. And if you think about it,
we haven't talked about this, but it's a testament to what a great golf course Stillwater Country Club was and is to this day. But now, the Oklahoma State team still plays out there frequently, and it's just because of distance now it's obsolete. It shows you how much golf has changed in 50 years. It's absolutely amazing.
It's amazing, but they did have incredible rough, very firm greens, a lot of wind. Now remember, for about 10 years after that tournament, there was a family who lived, the 15th hole was a horseshoe dogleg left to right. And so you literally went in a horseshoe. And Mike Holder used to try to hit between the trees and drive the green from the tee, which you actually still could do when Pablo Martin was on my team. He could occasionally hit it over that direction, but had to be on the right day. But they had Ben Crenshaw, the third round shot, 67, great round of golf, but he hit it out of bounds on that hole. And they had a sign in their yard for 10 years that said, "Ben hit OB here." So I'm sure Ben Crenshaw just thrilled to hear that.
I remember that. And the fact of the matter is, there's probably a lot of other, maybe not quite as famous as Ben Crenshaw, but probably a lot of other players that have gone on to very successful professional careers that have hit it in their yard as well since then. Well, you probably had a few while you were here.
Oh my gosh, did I ever? That ruined a bunch of qualifying rounds for kids. They got it going and hit it out of bounds on 15. So that was a good memory of mine. But I did come down and see you off and on through the years. I remember coming down in the winter for a basketball game, and we had a dance after the basketball game. You fixed me up with a girl that I was so not wanting to dance, but you fixed me up with her. I was not happy with you, but anyway, so thanks a lot for that.
So was that all these years I felt like I was doing you a favor trying to make you feel welcome, and that's not the case at all. It doesn't sound like.
Well, I just think you were trying to make fun of me. Just I was over in the corner
Oh,
minding
no.
my own business, and I didn't want to dance, and I had to get on the dance floor. Not happy about it, but anyway, I
Well,
don't.
my apologies then all these years later.
Okay, thanks. Um, so let's talk about your high school career. You were, if they had junior rankings in those days, you'd have been a top 5 player for 2 or 3 years for sure in the country. They didn't actually have the rankings they have today, but you were definitely one of the top prospects. Describe your recruiting process. You grew up in Stillwater, so I know you had a real bent towards OSU, but I know you took a visit to Georgia and maybe a couple others. Describe the recruiting process because I know it's a lot different from today.
Oh, yeah, no question how much has changed. And of course, you're right in the middle of it. But, with no social media, I mean, that's probably the biggest change. I did get phone calls on a weekly basis from most of the schools that were recruiting me. The one that probably sticks out the most is Coach Williams at Houston.
Mm-hmm.
He'd call every Sunday night. And what a terrific man. He actually, I got to where I really liked him a lot, and he ended up talking probably to my mom more than he talked to me. And she answered the phone. She didn't have caller ID back then. You never knew who it was. But
Well, I'll tell you something. You've got one of the top junior players in the country. All the schools are calling him. He lives 4 miles from the campus, and Dave Williams thought he could get you to come to Houston, guaranteed.
well, and Dave Williams probably. I mean, man, he accomplished a lot. I mean, how many national championships did he win at Houston?
16,
16, didn't he? Yeah. So, terrific coach. Yeah, and I don't know. Again, it was a lot of different process, so it was not encumbering to me at all. I mean, I kind of enjoyed it really, and ORU was a pretty big player in college golf back then. Oral Roberts and Coach Brogdon, and I really liked Coach Brogdon a lot. Matter of fact, I took one of my official visits there. Coach Copas at Georgia actually flew out came to visit Stillwater and spent some time with me and my family. Then I flew back to Georgia with him. Just so happened it was the week of the Masters, so they took me to the practice round at Augusta, which was pretty impressive. But
Wow.
yeah, I enjoyed the process. At the end of the day, it was, I'm sure, quite different than it is now. But it would have been really hard to leave Stillwater and Oklahoma State. Like you said, I'd been a lifelong fan and grown up here, was born and raised here. And Coach Holder, quite frankly, he did a good job recruiting me. He did not take it for granted that I was going to go to school here, and he spent a lot of time
Well,
recruiting me.
Mike, if nothing else, he was thorough. I mean, he always did his job all the way to the finish line. But that reminds me of a story that I'm going to tell. So you just stay quiet here for a second. It was he had just signed you to a letter of intent in April of '78. In those days, you signed in the spring. So you've just signed your letter of intent. You're officially going to Oklahoma State the following fall, and you're winning the state high school championship by 10 shots. This is not even a thing. You're running away with it. And it's a windy, typical spring day in Oklahoma, and you've got this shot maybe 110 yards uphill into a 15 to 18 mile an hour wind, a lot of ball, and it's into a good wind, maybe 110 yards. You take out a sand wedge, and Mike's following you. He's just following you, watching you waltz to this victory, and you hit this gorgeous little sand wedge in there. It hits up near the hole, but you hit it so hard that it spun back to the front edge of the green, about 16 to 18 feet short of the hole. Perfect look for birdie. And you're wiping off the dirt off your club, and Mike Holder walks over and says, "Jeff, what club did you just hit?" And you said, "Well, coach, I hit a sand wedge." And he said, "Well, Jeff, Jack Nicklaus wouldn't even hit a sand wedge right there." You politely put your golf club in the bag and said, "Well, coach, I guess that's the difference between me and Jack Nicklaus." Now, that's a true story because I got it from Mike Holder, and it's in my book. So I just want to know what you have to say about that now. How much confidence did you have at that time?
Evidently a little too much.
I mean,
well, I think you set the
difference
scene. I was probably a little too full of myself, and probably should not have said that. But in hindsight, maybe that was the one time in my life I actually had the upper hand on Coach Holder.
That would be the one time. I do know this. When he told the story to me, he said it with a smile on his face because he thought that Jeff, boy, that kid, he had a lot of self-belief. He really did. Wow. So, okay. So there it is out for the world to know. You actually had that. Now let's get into your college experience because this is a college golf podcast. Basically, it's all things college golf, if you will. You played on some amazing teams while you were at Oklahoma State. When you got there in the fall of '78, I think you guys finished runner-up your freshman year. You won it, the national championship your sophomore year, fourth your junior year, and runner-up your senior year. So you guys were always near the national championship, no doubt about it. I think you played in 25 events for Oklahoma State. You didn't play the golf you thought you would play. So I'm going to ask you why you think maybe you fell short of the golf that you thought you would play. And I think what everybody thought you might do, and what you would have done differently or any of that. But it's a great experience. We're going to talk about some of your teammates here in a minute.
Well, I don't, looking back on it now, I think it was a maturity thing with me. I think everyone matures at a little different level. It might have been a little more difficult for me staying in my hometown. But I think, most of the responsibility falls on me. I think I got a little sideways with my golf swing for various reasons. And, again, probably did not have the career I envisioned, but, looking back on it, the memories and, the college experience for me as a whole was, I don't think I'd trade it.
You've always said that to me. I wanted to hear that on this podcast. I don't think you should trade it. I think it was great. The relationships you made with people through the years, just the experience of competing at that level. I do know I was looking through the record book. One year you finished, I think, 5th, 6th, or 7th, something at the All-American, which was next to the NCAA championship, was the biggest event. You shot 66 the second round. So you were in the lineup a bunch. You played 25 events for Oklahoma State. It wasn't arguably the best team. It was the best team in the country those 4 years. So pretty amazing. But you developed some great relationships that are lifelong relationships. And one of them is Willie Wood, who to me is one of the most underrated pro golfers of the last 35 years. 40 years. He won on the Champions Tour a couple of times. He won on the PGA Tour once. He kept his card basically all of that time. That's hard to do, and it's really hard to do when you're 5'6" and 120 pounds. And Willie is a great friend of yours. Talk about Willie. Tell people about Willie and your relationship.
Well, I think you described it perfectly. I mean, I think he is one of the most amazing stories in golf. To me, to be his size and to have the career that he had is pretty phenomenal. And I think about Willie, and I think most people would probably echo this. The first thing that comes to mind is just what a phenomenal short game and really what an unbelievable putter he was. I remember going back to college. And I mean, anytime he was inside of 6 or 7 feet, you were just wasting your time making him putt it because, it might be an exaggeration, but honestly, I don't think I ever remember him missing a putt inside of 5 feet in our 4 years of college. And you're right. He's still a good friend to this day, and so happy for him that he's had the career he's had. Well, he was a player of the year in college golf. I mean, at his size, I mean, he won the Fred Haskins Award. I mean, that's just unheard of, I think.
Well, he was the U.S. junior champion. He was the U.S. amateur runner-up. He was the college player of the year. He finished runner-up in 2 events on his rookie year on the PGA Tour. I think it's underrated, but what's really underrated is this. I always knew Willie was a heck of a nice guy. I always knew he was just a good person. He never thought of himself bigger or better than anybody he was around, ever. He treated me that way when I was playing golf at Central Oklahoma and I would come visit you. He treated me with amazing respect. But when I really, really knew it was when I became the golf coach at Oklahoma State, and Willie would come up and visit and play and practice. The way he treated my wife was like off the charts. He remembered Pam's name every time. He always went and said hello to her. I just don't think he ever thought he was better than any of us. And he was a better player for sure. But
no doubt.
I just love Willie, and I think he's a fantastic example of what a pro athlete can be.
Well, I think that's why he was so endeared everywhere, as a tour player, or when he came back home to Oklahoma State or to play at Karsten Creek, or even to this day when he comes back, he treats everybody the same. He just he's a lot of fun to be around. And one thing, and you will remember this, but Willie and I's relationship started before he was actually in school here at Oklahoma State. When he came on his recruiting visit, I was his host for the weekend, and I actually had a girlfriend at the time who was still a senior at Stillwater High School, and Willie decided he wanted to have a date while he was in town. So my girlfriend at the time set him up with one of her friends. And,
Was that Nikki, your girlfriend at the time?
that was Nancy.
Nancy.
Nancy,
Right.
yeah. And then you may remember Catherine Coffey. Well, you remember her dad for sure, Dr. Coffey.
Yep.
And anyway, we had a great time on his visit, and was so happy that he chose to come to Oklahoma State, because he clearly could have gone anywhere in the country, and had a great deal to do with the success of OSU for the next 4 years. There's no question about that.
Well, and I talked to Mike Holder. I asked him, Mike, of all the years you had coaching at Oklahoma State, what's the most impressive, single career or year of a player that a player had? He said, wow, that's tough. He said, Bob Tway didn't finish outside the top 8 in 1981. That was pretty good. Fred Haskins Award winner. Lindy Miller, he said, that guy could shoot 64 in his sleep. His nickname was Log because he would fall asleep in rounds of golf sitting on tee boxes. But he said, I'd have to argue that Willie's 1982 season, with a blotted ball, all the bad conditions you play and everything, he had one round over 73, and it was a 75 where a ball bounced over the green out of bounds on the last hole of the tournament. So he made double. But he said he did everything right that year. He won just about everything he played in. It was just an amazing year. So, but anyway, we're talking about Willie more than you here. Willie is just your good buddy. He's our good buddy. And I think he's always that way. And I was so thrilled when I was still at Oklahoma State. I got a commitment out of Haydenwood, his son, to come to Oklahoma State. I didn't last long enough to be able to coach him, and Alan Bratton got to coach him. But I know Willie was really thrilled when Hayden told me he was coming to Oklahoma State. So
I think we were all thrilled with that decision of Hayden's.
Well, I remember Mike Holder seeing him out at the golf course and saying, have you made a decision yet, young man? He said, yes, sir, I did. Like Mike hadn't heard it yet. It was like, how long are you going to wait? But I remember Willie, the smile on his face. He was pretty pumped. But yeah, I know you still keep in touch. And now that he's not playing quite as much, I bet you guys keep even more in touch.
We do. Matter of fact, I've already talked to him a couple of times today. Saw him at the football game yesterday. So, yeah, we talk pretty frequently now that his career is kind of winding down. And I think he's happier than he's ever been. I think he's living his best life right now.
That's great. That's awesome. Well, listen, another person that's pretty well known that you've had a long, like a 40-year relationship with, and that is Bill Self, one of the great college basketball coaches, period. Bill was he was a student athlete when you first got to know him at Oklahoma State. And then he was later an assistant coach for Eddie Sutton, I believe. And so you kept your relationship going with Bill all through the years, even though he's a Rock Chalk Jayhawk now. But you've kept in touch with him, haven't you?
Yeah, hard not to pull for that guy. We don't talk as often as we used to, and I sure wish he was coaching at Oklahoma State. But he's had an amazing career. You're right. He's one of the best ever to do it at the college basketball level. He's just had a phenomenal career, and we did get to know each other in college, and then we played quite a bit of golf together back in the day, and he was always entertaining on the golf course. He could hit it a long ways, never real sure what was going to happen after that, but he loves golf. He still loves golf to this day. And I remember going up when he was an assistant for Coach Sutton in the evenings when he'd make calls to recruits. And I just sit in his office with him. And he was a young guy at the time. He was not much more than, I think, 26 or 27 years old. And it was so entertaining to listen to him talk to the recruits. And I remember I'd leave the arena and I'd get back in my car and I'd drive home and I'd think, how in the world could anybody say no to that guy?
Not very many of them did.
No, you're right.
He was a good recruiter.
The rest is history, right?
Yeah, I do recall him signing some pretty good players for Coach Sutton.
Yeah, and again, we don't talk as often as we used to, which I miss. But he's busy. Life kind of gets in the way sometimes. But our good friend Barry Henson, Coach Henson, and his wife Angie that now live in Stillwater. Barry talks to him fairly frequently still, so I still have the pulse on what's going on, and we just see each other occasionally. And whenever we do, it's just like with you and I. It's like old times, and yeah, it's really happy for all that's happened for Bill Self for sure.
I am too. And when I won a national championship as a coach at Oklahoma State in 2006, one of the letters I received about 10 days later was from Bill Self. I kept it. It's pretty cool to get one from him. And he was a national championship coach at that time as well.
No question.
Okay. Your professional career. So you turned pro, I think in 1982 or early 83. And so I'll give some stats. I think you made it to the finals at Q School 4 times, finals at qualifying school. In those days you had, I mean, it was 3 stages and you got to the finals, and it was for the PGA Tour, not for Korn Ferry. I caddied for you in one of those, 1985, and we'll talk about that maybe. You were a dominant player on the Dakotas Tour, State Opens, mini tours. You played tons of great golf, you know, as a professional. We played some scrambles together, and I think we're undefeated. I do recall that. I think my putting is the only thing it helped us out with right there. But you did something else that's pretty special. You played in 2 U.S. Open golf championships. The U.S. Open, my dad played in one. My brother-in-law Chuck played in one. My twin sister Patty played in a women's U.S. Open. But you played in 2 of these things. And if I was Lee Janzen, I would petition with the USGA just to let you play in every one of them. He won both U.S. Opens you played in. Talk about it. At I believe it was Baltusrol and what was the other one? Oak Hill or
Olympic Club.
Olympic Club. Thank you. Yeah. All right, go ahead and talk about those 1993 and 98.
Well, the disappointing part of that, now that you mentioned Lee Janzen, is it sounds like he probably should have worked pretty hard to get me an exemption in subsequent years after that. If I was, must have been a good luck charm for him. But I do think you had him on the podcast, didn't you?
Did
maybe a year or 2 ago, and I think that came up, and he mentioned the same. Boy, I better find that guy and run him down.
But he doesn't know you. I know him, and I know you. I got to get this thing together here. I don't know if your game is ready for a U.S. Open right now, but who knows?
It's 64 years old, probably not. But no, it was a treat to play in both the Opens. Clearly, you know, I think. Gosh, you know, you wish I missed the cut both times. I did shoot 69 the second round at Baltusrol, the first one I played in after I kind of got my feet on the ground, but I'd shot 79 the first day. So that was kind of irrelevant at that point. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to play in them. You know, I think that the big takeaway for me, and I remember writing this for some publication, I think I kept a little diary the first time I played in the U.S. Open, was just that I think the difference, and you know this well, is it's, you know, the people that do it every week, day in, day out, they're acclimated. And if you don't, I think those are the guys that really become successful quick out there, the ones that can acclimate the quickest to the PGA Tour, the lifestyle, the crowds, whatever all you want to put in that basket that goes into it. But, you know, I felt like the first year, the first time I played in one, I really didn't know what to expect. But the second time I played in the Open, I was really disappointed because I really thought I was playing well, thought I was more mature, thought I had a better understanding of, you know, how to play in a U.S. Open. And gosh, I was even worse that time than the first time. So I guess I didn't learn much at all. But at the end of the day, it was a treat. And, you know, I had a couple of friends that got to caddy for me each time. So the experience with them was fun. If it would have been a different place and different time, maybe that caddy from the 1985 tour school you mentioned, maybe we could have gotten him on board, but I think he may have gotten fired after tour school that year.
Can we talk about that real quick before we move on?
If we have to.
So in those days, they had three stages, and I missed out on the second stage by a couple of shots. And you qualified for the final stage, which was great. And you asked me, would you caddy? I thought, this is great. I'm going to get on the bag here, and Jeff's going to, you're only 25, but he's going to get his tour card, and we'll always look back on this as like the turning point in his career. I just remember, well, you do remember, that was that week, you finally came to the realization I was the fastest eater in the world. We ate Grandy's one night, and I just...
Oh, may I tell that story? Can I
You may
just
tell
step
that
in here?
story.
Sorry yeah, I just like to tell that story because I don't know. Do you talk about your eating habits on the podcast very often?
Occasionally, yes. Yes, it's legendary, certainly.
And there's a lot of legendary stories I could tell, but this was the first time that I really realized, I had spent a lot of time together growing up and till we were 25 years old. So I had seen you eat a lot, but we were eating at a Grandy's that night, and we had both got the big chicken fried steak and potatoes and whatever all goes with it, I'm sure, and a dessert because we were still growing boys, right? And we had a little inexpensive motel room, and they all have that little table by the window with a couple little chairs. And we were sitting there, and I'm sure we were talking about what had happened that day on the golf course. And I had literally, what people should know is that you can eat very rapidly and still carry on a conversation somehow.
That's the genius of it.
That is the genius of it. There's no question. And we had been eating our meal, and I think I'd had 3 or 4 bites, and I looked over, and your meal was done along with the dessert. And I never realized it until just then. And the other thing that I realized that night for the first time was when you get finished with your meal, you start focusing on the food that is left on somebody else's plate.
You're a victim at that point. And Pam, my wife, has experienced that on 1,000 occasions.
Poor Pam, yes, I'm sure. So anyway, sorry to step, but I felt like that was a story that needed to be told from my perspective.
Right. But regardless, we didn't get through that week, and
we did not.
You had to move on to the next thing. But I will say, before we finish your pro career, just and I know you're still playing some pro-ams nowadays, and occasionally, and with your business that you have, you play a little bit of golf, but you did something that only last year was broken, and that was the course record at Karsten Creek. And I know Victor Hovland shot 62 last year, but you held that record for 20 years at 63. Birdied 10, you shot 33 on the front and birdied 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That doesn't happen at Karsten Creek. That record stood for a long time.
It did stand for a long time. Yeah, I think they had 2 or 3 NCAA tournaments that came along during that time while you were at Oklahoma State. And can't remember, it might have been Harris English, somebody, but there were some players that
John Peterson shot 65. He shot 65 there. Yeah.
Yeah. So there were, and obviously a lot of good Oklahoma State players that came through. So it was a little surprising that it held up that long, I guess, if you will. But yeah, that was just one of those days. Everybody has them occasionally, and I think it was one of those days where just every putt you looked at, it looked like the hole was the size of a trash can or something. So, but yeah, that was fun to hold that record for a while anyway.
I mean, I tell people that walked off the golf course the first time playing and they shot 84. What is the course record, by the way? Well, Jeff McMillian shot 63, and they were looking for you to get your autograph. It was like they just couldn't imagine that score. Anyway, so before we finish your pro golf, any mulligans, any regrets, anything you say, I wish I had that to do over? Any of that? None of that?
No, I don't think so. I don't think I could be any happier with the way things have worked out with our business. And, it got to the point where a little later in life, I mean, I still love golf, but I just didn't enjoy the working at it, what you need to put into it to get out of it if you're going to be successful playing for a living. And so, yeah, no, I think everything worked out. And I'm a big believer in things work out for a reason. I mean, I think things happen for a reason. And, I think, I've talked about it. As I got closer to turning 50, there were a lot of people that thought, I was still probably playing about as well as I ever had at that point, that thought maybe I should give the Champions Tour a go. And it just, I told everybody the same thing. I couldn't be any happier than I am right now. Yeah. So why change it?
Well, and you actually got to still be involved with golf with Backtee Sports. Let's go ahead and talk about that. Backtee Sports is a company where you do corporate outings and you even do fishing outings for them. You do a lot of different things, but to me, it's such a cool thing, but it's shocking you've been able to keep it going, even through rough economic times in this country the last 15 years. I think your business is as big as it's ever been. Tell me about Backtee Sports and how you kept it going.
Well, it's been a lot of fun over the years. And from the very start, Danny Edwards, who played at Oklahoma State, played on the PGA Tour, and Jim Ahern, who also played at Oklahoma State, started the first version of Backtee Sports way back in 1985. And I started working events in the early 90s with a couple other guys that are still working with us today. But Jim and Danny split up, kind of went their separate ways in the mid 90s, I think it was. And then Danny kept it going for the years after that. And then I think it was about 2004, 2005. Danny kind of lost interest a little bit. He had a lot of, Danny, I mean, he had a lot of irons in the fire. He had a lot of the stuff going. And so myself and, Mike Cornell and, Kurt Schnell, a couple of guys I've been working with all these years, kind of took it over, which would have been about 20 years ago, I guess. And in a nutshell, we do corporate, mostly golf events, but you did mention fly fishing. We do one or two of those a year as well. And once a company contracts with us, and most corporations use it to build business relationships. There's a few that use it as rewards for employee incentive type situations. But once they contract with us, we take over the whole 9 yards. So we arrange everything. It's a turnkey service we provide once they contract with Backtee Sports. And it's been a blast. We get to, as you mentioned, I get to keep my toe in golf, and we still get to go to most of the great golf resorts you would think of around the country. Well, really around the world. We take groups out of the country, not real often, but occasionally. And at the same time, I told a lot of people this, Mike Cornell and Kurt Schnell are two of the best friends I have in the world, and admire both of them so much. They're both multiple-time teachers and players of the year in their sections. Kurt has his own golf course now up in Northwest Iowa that he's owned for quite a while. And so I always learn something when I get together with those two guys. It's a treat to be with them. And then the other luxury for me is Robin, my wife, has been our on-site administrator, planner for the better part of that time, probably 25 plus years now. So it's really nice that we get to travel together. And I think that's probably allowed me to do it this long quite honestly, because it did come up fairly frequently when she first got started, when I was working before she first got started, that, hey,
you're going to some nice
what about taking me along to one of these deals? Yeah. They sound pretty nice.
I was going to mention that Pam only goes to golf tournaments when it's Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Cabo. She doesn't go to Cleveland, Ohio, and Robin
she's got it figured out. Yeah.
She saw all these great places you were going to, the Broadmoor. I mean, what a beautiful place is the Broadmoor. You go to Pebble Beach, you just go to a lot of nice places. And I think Robin was really smart. Plus, she knew that she would be the brains of the business, and that's why the thing has succeeded like it has, right?
Well, there's absolutely no question about that. And you did mention we went through, when COVID came along a few years back. Yeah, it was a pretty rough patch. We were, I don't know, we went about 15 months without doing a single event, and probably pretty close to maybe shuttering the doors. But ever since then, yeah, people are gung ho for it again. And you mentioned the Broadmoor. I had forgotten that you actually at one point in your life lowered yourself to work with the Backtee Sports Group.
I did. In 2005, I worked at the Broadmoor. I just coached the women at Oklahoma State at the national championship and flew straight from there to the Broadmoor. And what I recall was you paired me with a gentleman named Fred. And Fred was an older gentleman, a nice guy. And then there was another gentleman, I don't remember his name, but he was really upset because I didn't hit the ball well enough for him. He thought, by gosh, you've been playing golf all these years, you ought to be a better player. I hadn't hit a ball in a year, so I don't know what he was expecting. But anyway,
that was Pat Fitzgerald, by the way, just to give Pat credit for his comment.
Well, he certainly wasn't happy with my golf, I can tell you that. I wasn't either. But okay,
I thought you acquitted yourself well, for what it's worth. I thought you did a fine job.
All right. I'm going to tell this story. So in the 1980s, we were playing scrambles together. I caddied for in the finals of tour school. We played in pro-am. So we were connecting still, but 8 or 10 times a year max. But a couple of those times, 2 or 3, would be an OSU football game. And you were doing in those days no cell phones, so you were having to report injuries from the sideline with a little phone up to the press box. Okay, so that's what you did. And you said, Mike, if you want to come up to the game, you can be on the sidelines with me. And I thought, wow, sidelines in OSU football, because I'd always been up in section N at the top of the stadium. I'd never been close. So I started doing those games, and you're performing your duties. Somebody gets injured, you go over to the trainer. Okay, what's happened? You go over to that little phone, and you would call up to the press box, so the commentator would have all the information you needed. But you got a little bit lazy and lackadaisical at 6 or 7 years in. You'd gotten to where you just, oh, that's 40 yards down there to where that phone is. So, or where that injury is. I'll never forget this. So a guy goes down, the trainers are working on him over on the sidelines, and we're next to the phone right there, but you'd have to walk all the way to the other end to find out what happened and then come back to the phone. And you just got on the phone and you said, okay, Jim, yeah, it looks like there's a potential ACL. I don't think he's coming back this game. I looked and I said, Jeff, have you lost your mind? You're and you basically didn't do it for maybe one more year after that. Now, is that the true story, or am I getting that right?
You might have embellished just a little bit, but I think probably the gist of it is probably pretty accurate. And maybe, I think with a lot of folks with jobs, they may take some liberties once they've been in the same position for a while. So maybe that's what I was doing. But
okay,
I have a different story to tell about that. Do we have time to tell that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
About their to your point, I don't think we were stationed. You were helping me with reporting the injuries, and I don't think we were stationed exactly where we should be. And I think instead of that, we were all the way down in the end zone.
Uh-huh.
And yep. I think we spent quite a bit of time down there, actually. So to your point, it probably is accurate what you were saying. But I remember a guy named Thurman Thomas that played Oklahoma State had scored on a long touchdown run.
Mm-hmm.
We were at the back of the end zone. We were probably jumping up and down. We were happy about it. And Thurman, as fate would have it, he just circled through the end zone right by where we were standing.
Absolutely.
And do you remember what happened after that?
I just remember this is probably my only time to slap a Hall of Famer on the butt, and I did.
Yeah, good for you. Okay, that's what I thought happened. Now it has been put in your own words. And he was the I think he was an NFL MVP as well one year.
Yes, he was. Yeah, but he won't remember that. But I think there's video somewhere in the sports information office, maybe of that for proof. But
archives. There must
be a little
somewhere.
overzealous there, a little overzealous, overreach, if you will. Okay. All right. So along those lines, OSU golf camp that you worked for me. So I got the job in August of 2005. My first Mike McGraw OSU golf camp was June of 2006. You worked 8 golf camps for me, I believe. And I think you have a couple of good stories to tell. Maybe one golf camp. I've got some that are not for this podcast, but I'm sure this one is appropriate. Correct?
I'll keep it appropriate if I have to. Yeah. Let's be clear on one thing though. The main reason I worked golf camp all those years was not because of you. It was to spend the time with Coach Keating.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mark Keating.
Yeah, Mark Keating. Yeah, who, as you probably know, just recently was inducted in the Oklahoma Coaches Hall of Fame. So that's probably not entirely accurate. I did enjoy spending time with you as well. But Coach Keating and I, we kind of always did our own thing. You had your own responsibilities, and you were kind of the commander of the entire event. So we kind of got aside and did our. But back to the point of the story that I have to tell. About halfway through that stretch, I believe there was a little 11 or 12-year-old guy that showed up one year that was left-handed. It was his first golf camp. Scott Davies at the time was doing the video up top in the barn, and I remember occasionally I'd peek my head in there, and I had done so right after this kid had been in there to get his swing video, and Scott still had his mouth basically wide open. He said, it's the first time I've ever videoed somebody, and I said, do not change a single thing. And word circulated pretty quickly. It got back to you fairly quickly. So when I showed up the next morning, this left-hander was down at the very end of the range. Now, keep in mind, I think he might have been 12 years old at the time. And you're standing right there behind him, watching him hit balls. And I thought, boy, this is perfect. So I leaned in there and listened to the conversation for about 5 minutes. And then I went on about my way. And then we circled back together not long after that. And you basically had the same opinion of Scott Davies. It was the greatest golf swing you'd ever seen in your entire life.
By the way, his name was Brock Irwin. He was a wonderful golf swing. It was wonderful.
Okay, Brock Irwin. I do remember Brock. So anyway, fast forward to the last day of the camp, and the little tournament that is held every morning, the last day. And there's a counselor or a golf pro or a player in every group. And so I just happened to have Brock's group. And he teed off on the 11th hole, which was par 3 at Karsten Creek for people that have played there. It's a big two-tiered green. The pin was on the back, and they were playing the up tees. So I think he hit maybe a 9-iron or something in there. Beautiful shot, little draws, I remember. And it hit right into the tier, which was, again, a really big tier. Came all the way back to the front edge. And Brock made a 7 on that hole. 6 putts later, he left the green with the 7. And so as we're driving down the 12th fairway, I think I texted you and I said, do you still feel like putting is an important part of golf? And your response was, yes, why? And I said, well, then you might want to hold off on Brock's scholarship offer. Because he just 6-putted his first hole of the tournament.
Well, so what? Louis didn't putt as well as he swung the club. So what? Okay. And by the way, you all noticed there just now I called him Lou. And his nickname at OSU during his time at OSU was Lou because his hair looked like Lou Alcindor in those days. Is that correct?
That is correct. That I'm sure you remember that nickname is compliments of Craig Struthers back when I was growing up at Stillwater Country Club.
All right, Spooty. Perfect.
Spooty boy.
Okay, well, thank you for the OSU golf camp memory. Let's finish up with your best OSU sports memory. There isn't a better OSU sports fan. And, you and I attended all those games and did all that as young people. But what's your favorite memory? Can you break it down to one?
Just one? Boy, that would be really tough. I think
2 or 3.
Most recently, just the final Bedlam football game in Stillwater last year. I was on the field before the game with Coach Henson, and the atmosphere was just electric. It was like, can't imagine that there's any way OSU could lose today, but we've been down that road before. And then it turned out the euphoria after the win was, especially knowing it was the last one, at least for the foreseeable future, was pretty phenomenal. But yeah, just to go back through time quickly, because it sounds like we need to wrap up. But the season that Barry Sanders had, it was a long time ago. That's all encompassing. Every game he played was just phenomenal. And then, so many great athletes. You go back through baseball, Incavilla, Ventura, the records that they set that still stand today. But yeah, the most recent was that. If I had to pick, maybe one other one, it would probably it'd probably be the year that your team won the national championship.
Really? Oh, wow. Oh, that's awesome.
Just so people know, I'm looking at you. So I'm saying this. So that's why I'm getting emotional. But
no, yeah.
I want to just give me one more second because I do want to tell this, because when we were growing up, there's nobody that worked harder at golf than you. Nobody that was our age, nobody that I was around. You were a phenomenally hard worker, and you did the same. You applied that to your coaching career. And so, yeah, to see it culminate in a national championship at Oklahoma State, of all places, for you, it just, yeah.
Well,
it was special to me.
Jeff, I appreciate that. I did not expect that, but I definitely appreciate that. It was obviously a special time for me, and because of our relationship all those years, and I was able to do it. And you're obviously the biggest OSU fan, period. And you're an OSU golfer. For it to happen was pretty cool. And so thank you for saying that. That's great.
Well, it's heartfelt for sure, as you can tell. And I remember talking to you because I wasn't there in person. I was out in Oregon. at what was it, Sun River, right?
Sun River.
Yeah, and so I think I gave you about an hour and a half until I figured you were done with all your duties, and we talked on the phone, and yeah, it was emotional for me for sure, as you can tell.
Well,
but yeah,
thank you so much.
Well deserved
thank
for
you.
sure.
Thank you. This has been like a wonderful trip down memory lane for me. You told some great stories, but I also know that we talked about this at the beginning of the podcast. Golf brings lifelong relationships, and college golf does the same. And I want kids that are listening to this, or that are either going to be college golfers or are currently in college, to remember this is going to be some of the guys you're going to be friends with literally until you attend each other's funerals, that type of thing. It's like forever. And there's nothing like it. It's a great experience. I'm so glad I got to do it. And I'm so glad our relationship's still there. So thanks a lot, Lou. I really appreciate it.
Thanks to you. It's, hopefully we've got many more years of reminiscing and embellishing all the old stories.
I can definitely embellish. All right. Well, thanks again.
Thank you, Coach.